Hey guys, today we'll talk about my top 5 chapter specific units for Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Space Wolves. If you're running any of these factions or have the models, I highly recommend to add them to your list. And for Black Templars fans, their units will be in part 2 of this video, so without further ado, let's dive right in. The first is the Death Company Dreadnought. It has recently received a 20 points discount in the Mutant Field menu, and now I think it's a very cheap alternative to some other anti-tank threats. Black Templars do have a variety of great melee units to choose from, so this guy has a lot of competition, but I think he's more than worth it. It has an 8-inch move, which is quite impressive for those small legs. Look at them, they're very cute. He has a typical toughness 9, 2+ save, small dreadnought profile, and he also gets the Death Company 6+ Film Pain, which is great for such a small model with just 8 wounds, because for example, if you get a hit from a melt and they roll a 6, that will automatically kill a small dreadnought without the Film Pain, where with the Film Pain you're pretty much almost guaranteed to survive. Of course, I'm not gonna say this guy has a lot of survivability, because we still don't have the -1 damage on him like we did in the previous editions, so you will suffer from damage to attacks. However, I think for the price you will be able to squeeze enough of him, enough value from him before he goes down. Talking about the value, he gets full rerolls to hit as well as the Death Company model, and he also has the restriction of no fallback OC0 if there is no chaplain within 12 inches of him. Both of his melee profiles are twin linked, and you either get 7 attacks at strength 8 AP 2 damage 3 or 5 attacks at strength 12 AP 3 damage 3. I've done a calculation, and against the toughness 9 3+ save vehicle, it's a difference of 7.5 wounds and 10 wounds for the fists. You now see on the picture those are talons, so that's the 7 attacks version, and if you take a normal Dreadnought fist on both hands, you'll get 5 attacks and better performance against monsters and vehicles. And why I think you need to worry about them specifically is because of the next rule, which is +2 to charges thanks to Magna Grapple, which was a very weird rule back in a 9th edition that was preventing a fallback from a vehicle that was falling back from you. A very weird one. Nowadays it's very useful. It's +2 to the charge roll against monsters and vehicles, and considering this Dreadnought, even though its 8-inch move is good, it's not spectacular and it's not going to be enough for you to actually get to where you're going just walking. I would highly recommend to run this guy from reserves, where you put 1 or 2 of these in strategic reserves, and then you have them as your anti-vehicle monster threat, which will have a rather reliable charge into them. 7-inch charge reminds me of the good old days of the chaplains that could have Canticles of Hate in 9th edition, where you could just roll a 7 and get into combat. Nowadays, charge modifiers are very rare. Having 2 of these guys is quite an efficient way to deal with vehicles. It's another reason why I think the talons are less interesting, because yes, they are a bit better against Terminators, but just marginally so. It's not a huge difference, but it's significantly better against monsters and vehicles, so that's what I would choose. And as if it wasn't enough for this small crazy Dreadnought, he also gets to attack every time he gets targeted. So if someone shoots at him, he can shoot back with those meltaguns and stormbolters he has. Most importantly, every time he gets fought against, he can fight back with all of his attacks. And I could not find anything in any FAQs or any commentary that would say that he can only do it once. In the worst case scenario, if I just didn't find anything, so if he fights in the fight phase and something attacks him, he can fight again at least once, but probably rules as written, as far as I understand, he can fight multiple times. So if one squad attacks him, he fights back. If another squad attacks him, he fights back again. Just imagine attacking this guy with 2 or 3 units. You will get 2 or 3 times worth of his attacks back. That is crazy. Even if it's just one instance, it's still a very good rule. As always, I want to remind you about my Patreon 40k coaching service. If you're looking for help building your competitive rosters, preparing you for tournaments, or have any questions about your collection in general, check out the links for my Patreon in the description. Thank you. You know me, I love Dreadnoughts, and the Wulfen Dreadnought is one of my favorites because he has a huge axe and a huge shield, and that looks extremely cool. Beyond the fact that it's a cool model, I also love the fact that it's quite cheap. The previous Dreadnought was 145, this one is 130, so even cheaper. He does not get the cool +2 to charge thing, so you would not use him from reserves. Instead, what you would do is using his 8-inch move and the fact that you're playing Space Wolves, so you're playing Stormlands, you'll be advancing and charging this thing, running up the board and hoping that your opponent tries to kill that thing because it's quite inefficient. 130 points with a toughness 9, 2+ save, 6+ feel no pain, and the 4+ invulnerable save from that blizzard shield. Anything that your opponent points at this thing will not be that efficient, apart from like a very specific combination of maybe damage 2 stuff. Most of the normal anti-tank shooting will just bounce off that shield in most cases. Biggest weakness is the OC0, which unlike the Death Company Dreadnought, this guy does not have a way to get back that OC, so he's strictly for doing damage and attracting shots to take them away from your other units like your Thunderwolf Cavalry. For his weapon, he gets to choose between a claw and an axe. Claw is 5 attacks at strength 10, AP 3, damage 3, hitting on 3s, and axe has 2 profiles, which is why I like it much more. 5 attacks at strength 10, AP 2, so 1 lower than the claw, but D6 plus 1 damage, which is significantly higher. It's 4.5 on average compared to 3. So already better in this case, even considering the lower AP. And you also get a sweep profile, which is very important for these types of dreadnoughts, because you don't want them to be stuck in combat with something small and unsubstantial. Even though you can obviously fall back and charge if you're playing Stormlands, it's still nice to be able to finish off a small unit of, I don't know, Kabbalite warriors or witches. The sweep is good. Also, Wulfen Dreadnought is, in my opinion, like a small Brutalis, because he gets a great mortal wound output ability, which, to be honest, is even better than the Brutalis one, because Brutalis gets his ability only on the charge, where the Wulfen Dreadnought gets it every time he activates in combat. On a 4 to 5, you do D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, you do D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And the best part is, if you charge, you add 2 to the roll. So on a 4 up, you will be doing D3 plus 3 mortal wounds just by charging, and on a 2 plus, you'll be doing D3. So it's almost impossible for you, well, very unlikely for you to not succeed with that. You still can use Tank Shock, even though your attack, your main attack is only strength 10, but it's still going to be quite a lot of dice to roll. So you can have a decent output with mortal wounds from just one of these Wulfen Dreadnoughts. So if you're playing Space Wolves, highly recommend to have a couple of these in your lists. Next are the Deathwing Knights, and these guys come with a caveat that I like them and I think they are worth it in this top 5, because I really believe that they will get a buff very soon. Even in their current form, they're still good and worth their spot, just only in the Gladius detachment where you can fix their AP1 problems. So what am I talking about here? These guys are extremely durable Terminators, 4 wounds each and -1 damage, which is very inefficient to deal with pretty much anything apart from damage 3, and even still with damage 3 you need 2 successful wounds to go through compared to just 1 to kill any normal Terminator. We're not talking about the crazy 5+ feel pain Terminators of Black Templars, of course. Plus, of course, you get the extra durability with 1 CP and match fortitude from the Inner Circle detachment for -1 to wound when you're attacked by a higher strength than your toughness. This one is against shooting, and against melee you have in the other Unforgiven Task Force detachment, you get for 2 CP pretty much the same -1 to wound, but just without the claws for higher strength than the toughness. For 2 command points, you get that in melee. Again, problem with these guys is not the durability. Durability on them is great. Problem is the AP1 on their Maces of Absolution, which are the only damage 2 option they have. They have Power Weapons option, which does get an extra attack at strength 6, AP2, damage 1, but damage 1 is a killer here. It's in a bad sense. It's very, very bad because you're paying 43 points per model for these guys, and you want better than 2 successful wounds to just kill a Space Marine. For Terminators, in my opinion, damage 2 is a bare minimum. You can have damage 3, which is a very rare thing, but it's great. Damage 2 is a perfect sweet spot where you have the volume of attacks, hopefully good AP, and relatively high strength, mid-strength. Mace of Absolution pretty much fulfills those requirements, however AP1 is very bad. Why it's so bad is because you will be encountering a lot of situations where your opponent has something like Armor of Contempt, because half of the players in 40k are playing Space Marines, so they all have access to the very same Armor of Contempt stratagem that will remove your AP essentially at all in this case. And you don't want to be trying to punch through 2+ save or 3+ save when you have no way to modify that. Just to put that in perspective, you can have 20 successful wounds onto someone with 2+ save, and statistically, they only are supposed to fail 3 or maybe, if you're lucky, 4 saves. So with damage 2, and let's imagine that's a unit of Terminators, your 10-man unit of Terminators, which is very likely to put about 20 wounds on someone, you will only kill 2 Terminators max, and that's if you're lucky. Obviously, that's taken into account. If you have done 20 wounds to someone, you may do more, but 20 is a rough estimate of how much from like 40 attacks that you do, how many wounds you actually get onto the unit. There are a lot of units in 40k that have just 2+ save. Yes, they don't have Armor of Contempt, but they still will be rolling 3+ against your attacks, and 3+ is a very good save. So that's why these guys, I think they have all the potential to be extremely valuable and great unit. All they need is just a small balance that is late change where it says it's AP2 for the Mace of Absolution, and I don't know, maybe something extra for the power weapon to make it relevant. For now though, we have Gladius, where we have Honor the Chapter, where you can get that extra AP. So if you really want to run the Deathwing Knights now, you have that option, and they will not be bad there. They will be quite good, especially considering they received a discount, so they're now only 43 points per model, not however much they were before. But of course, you and me both, we want to run them as Inner Circle to get that sweet 3-inch dip strike, or first turn rapid ingress, or any other number of great things we have from that detachment. They also work quite well from a Land Raider, where you can actually fit a full 5-man squad there and maybe a character. So, and any Land Raider can fit that, not even a Redeemer, even a normal Land Raider. So yeah, you have a lot of ways to use them. They just need that fix for the AP and they'll be wonderful. Next are the Thunderwolf Cavalry, so they are at number 2, 180 points for 6-man squad. They also suffer from AP1 problem, but they're a different type of a unit, so it's not as bad for them. They have great volume of attacks, so they do 7 attacks each on the charge, and on the charge those attacks are damage 2, all of them, and strength 5, AP1, damage 2. So AP1 is bad, obviously, but here's why it's not that big of a deal here. First of all, volume. 7 attacks, even though 3 of them are hitting on 4+, but we have Oath, we have other things to help here. It's still a lot of attacks, and they're damage too, which is great. And you're paying only 30 points for a model here, so the same price as a Blade Guard veteran. On a platform with 4 wounds, toughness 6, and the same 4+ invulnerable save. Best of all, with this fast, mobile, and quite durable unit, you can have great killy characters with high AP and high damage that also get this +1 damage modifier that the Thunderwolf Cavalry have on the charge. So for example, if you're running Wolf Lord and the Thunderwolf and he has a Thunderhammer, the Thunderhammer all of a sudden has damage 3. Or if you're running the Lorgan Grimnar, he will have damage 4 on his axe, and he can actually join the Thunderwolf Cavalry squad when he's in his nice Santa sleigh. You also have an option to join a squad with Herald Deathwolf, and he gives them devastating wounds, which obviously solve the problem of AP1. So in Stormlands they work perfectly. Their goal is to overload the opponent with great quality defense and offensive stats. So it's not easy to deal with 4 wound models with toughness 6 and 4+ invulnerable save each. Even if you have damage 2, that's still not automatic. For example, you can have lower strength, like strength 5. For example, your Blade Guard veteran, you only have strength 5, so you'll be still wounding these guys on 5s, even though you have otherwise a good profile to attack them. And there are a lot of ways this profile is not that easy to counter. Like, if I'm playing Redemptor Dreadnoughts, yes, I have my damage 2, damage 3 plasma, but I then have to downgrade my strength, and I'm only killing a wolf with every 2 shots because of the 4 wounds that they have. And offensively, they provide a lot of volume with those maws of the wolves and obviously the heirloom weapons they have. And with advance and charge from Stormlands and also the shenanigans with coming from the reserves on turn 1, you will be able to use them and actually get that damage to the opponent, whilst your other assets will be doing damage in other parts of the board. Because these wolves cannot be ignored. If you ignore them, they will be charging and falling back back and charging again, and you need to deal with them, and they're hard to deal with. So that's why 180 points is a great price for them. If you're a Space Wolves player and you're not running Thunderwolf Cavalry, I think you need to reconsider some of your life choices. And last but not least are the Death Company with jump packs. So they are the go-to option for mobile melee unit for Blood Angels, and again, Blood Angels have quite a lot of choices, even the Sanguinary Guard that have been discounted recently. Cost 280 points for a unit of 10, and they are extremely mobile with that sweet, perfect combo of move 12, fly, and infantry keywords that allows them to fly over enemy screens, fly through the ruins, and just fly 12 inches. They also reroll charges innately, so you don't ever have to spend a CP on them not making a charge. They have inbuilt rerolls to hit as always, as that company does. Obviously the 6+ Film Pain and the good old problem of OC0 no fallback if the chaplain is not around, but you will not be facing that because you will always run them with a chaplain. We'll run them either with Limartis for lethal hits and -1 damage, which is a great combo, and lethal hits with such a volume of attacks, which in this case is 30 attacks per squad of 10, is great at their strength 8 and AP2 damage too. And -1 damage really makes it problematic to deal with these guys because damage 2 stuff doesn't work against them, and damage 3 will still not work perfectly because of 6+ Film Pain. I'm not calling them unkillable by any means, but I'm just saying they're annoying to deal with, especially considering you can fight on death with them both in Gladius and the Sons of Sanguinius detachment. Talking about their melee, again, they have the 3 attacks at 8/2/2 with their Power Fists, and Power Fists are probably the best option you have now because Thunder Hammers don't work really well with lethal hits, and you will usually be running Limartis with these guys. Also, the Power Fist is hitting on 3s instead of hitting on 4s, and you get an Inferno Pistol for each guy, so strength 8, AP4 damage, D3 attack with Melta and 6-inch range. So you can think about that as an add-on to your melee almost. They are good in Sons of Sanguinius with all that extra output you get for +2 to the strength, making their Power Fist strength 10 and the 4 attacks each. That is a great boost to their output. However, I really like them in Gladius as well because of Advance and Charge that expands their threat range to 30 inches, which is very hard to counter. So if you're running Blood Angels, I really recommend to run at least one 10-man unit with Limartis, or perhaps go the MSU way and have multiple 5-man units with Chaplains for those mortal wounds and +1 to wound. Chaplains do mortal wounds every time they are selected to fight. On a 4+ they do D3, and on a 6 they do 3 mortals flat. They obviously fight reasonably well themselves, and they also can have the Inferno Pistol, so the full squad of 11 will have 11 shots with those pistols. So once again, the Black Templars units will be in part 2 of this video. I'm gonna make another one with other units that I think are great. Space Marines have quite a lot of great units that I really like you to know about, and let me know if there is a unit that you really like and you would like me to cover. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.